Hey everyone, I'm Justin. Welcome back to my shop. And in this one, we're going to continue my ukulele build and we're going to work on putting the sides together. And the first step in doing that is I have to build a jig to hold the sides in place while they get glued. The first step of that has been cutting out just a piece of plywood to hold everything. And the way that it works is you have a lot of these angle brackets. You get 4 of those in there with a few wood spacers and some dowels. Those go along our template that we have to hold everything in place for then when we get the sides, they'll go right on in and we can glue them up. So I'm going to go ahead and start figuring out where these need to be drilled, and we'll get the jig built first. All right, I got the jig all put together to hold the sides in, and I think it went pretty good. Had to get, cut some blocks to go on the ends and the dowels that go in the waist portion. Some things I'm noticing, and I think this is to be expected, that this is clearly not the most ideal way to do this, and I can see in the future having a dedicated mold would really help a lot. But I get this as a kit, and there's no way you would invest the time in making a mold just for one kit. But the issues I had here are the brackets are not perfectly 90 degrees, and that's going to translate when I glue the sides up. They're pretty close, and I think for what we're doing, they're going to be all right. I also need a better square. This is great for framing, not so great for little work like this. So I probably need to invest in some smaller squares for this type of setup work. And the other thing that I've seen so far, and maybe I'm just not to that part of the instructions quite yet, my sides are, I think, oversized. They are definitely coming past the midline on both ends. So I think I'll need to, well, not if I get that all the way up there. So I'll need to make sure I have a good way to hold the sides where they need to be I also think that that's definitely not square. So I will need to true some of that up, but that'll be in the next step. But got this built, went good, and now we'll start looking at getting the sides in there. So I just did a dry fit of putting my sides in here, and I'll do it again to show you how they go in. And I did discover it's a pretty tight fit, which is probably good. But my ends are definitely not cut square to the body. So if I get everything aligned here and pushed down flat, I have a significant gap at the bottom, but not at the top on this side. And same thing on this side. And depending on whichever way I put those in there, the gap will be at the bottom or the top. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scribe a line with my combination square, because I don't think it's out much. And either, sand off a little bit, file off a little bit just to make that, or even just use my X-Acto knife and get that as square as I can before, really dialing in how we're going to glue this up. Okay, I got the ends trued up as good as I can, and they're not perfect. We still have a decent amount of gap in here. But with what I have, that seems to be as close as I can get it. Interested to know if you guys have any tips on truing that up. That would be great. And I wonder if it makes a difference that these are not solid. This is a laminate material. The neck joint side, I think, may end up being a little bit closer. Well, no, it's still got a decent gap up there. So I may work on it a little bit more. Then we got to get the blocks in place. Get those trimmed, and I think, obviously the neck will cover up this joint, and I may do, can't think of what it's called, end graft down here on the outside to cover that potentially. I wasn't prepared to do that on my first build, but maybe I will. Coming along. All right, so I got the edges trued up as best I could, and I've done a mock-up to get everything glued together. I've got my end blocks trimmed and marked for their center, wax paper. Should be good to go. All right, so I got it all glued together, and it turned out pretty good. The gaps weren't as bad as I thought they were, but they're definitely still there. I'll have to decide after I get all the glue cleaned up and sanded off if I want to do an end graph or not. The neck definitely has some gaps, more up towards the top, but the neck will cover all of this. So we'll see as I get it cleaned up if I want to do any more to it or not, but pretty pleased. We'll get it back in the mold, and next step we'll be doing, it's not kerfing because it's not kerfed, but the little edge pieces to get those glued in there as well. Here's the linings, and I've already done my dry run and got them cut to length and got them clamped in just to make sure I had everything figured out that I was going to do. These are kind of neat how they're made, where it's a veneer of two pieces. This side, the grain's going that way, and on this side, the grain's going this way, which is what's allowing it to bend pretty easily. For clamps, have a whole bunch of these clothespin clamps. That's hard to say. Just a rubber band wrapped around them for a little more pressure. The instructions tell you how to do all of that. I just want to make sure I get these in here flush or a little proud of the edges. And by a little bit, I mean a little bit, because everything's going to get sanded down flat after the fact. So I think I'm ready. I'm going to go ahead and glue it up. All right, so I got the sides all finished up, got the linings in. I had way too much squeeze out on these. I should have taped them, and it even says that in the instructions. And I guess the reason why I didn't is it was in the form, and I, for whatever reason, didn't want to take it out to turn it upside down, tape it, then put it in and glue. I will definitely do that next time. But it was a good lesson in learning how difficult the squeeze out is to clean up after it's dry. So some lessons you just learn the hard way. But it came out great. Excited to move on to the next step. Next step is going to be sanding the top and the back to make sure that this is all in the same plane, because currently if I put it down flat, there are some high spots and some low spots. So get that all perfectly flat. My heel block and neck block, they need to be taken down a little bit to make sure that they're flush with the top and not proud. And then we will be moving on to getting the top and back on the sides and closing up the box. So that's where I'm going to leave this one. Thank you so much for anybody that watched it. I had a great time continuing to build this. I hope you enjoyed watching it, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.